Welcome to Open with Alex, where every episode is a journey into diverse perspectives and compelling stories. I'm your host, Alex, and together we'll explore the depth of the human experience. Get ready to open up to new insights and inspirations with each guest. Let's dive in. Today, we're joined by Russ Mandell. Born in Brooklyn in 1957, Russ Mandell's journey embodies New York's resilience, from a challenging past marked by addiction and loss to a groundbreaking career on Wall Street. He founded Roan Capital Partners and Sky Capital Holdings, making history on the London Stock Exchange. Despite legal challenges, Russ maintains his innocence and looks forward to the next chapter post-release from prison with his first official interview with us. Hello, everybody. I'm here with Russ Mandell. This is a breakthrough. I thought about this moment so many times. You have no idea. I'm welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's such a great honor to be here today. Is she unbelievably good looking, this woman?
Thank you, Ross. Thank you. He's always been very nice to me. I wanted to have you here because this podcast is all about inspiring people that go through trials and tribulations in life. And we want to make sure that, especially your story, I think it's so powerful that we can inspire people that have gone through hardship and through whatever it is that you and I have talked about many times in our lives. I'm going to be chronological because I read a lot about your bio. Talk to me about the beginning of Russ in New York, the very beginning of Russ.
Okay, so my story has been covered in print and media. Maybe more than I would like, but when I was 16 years old, my father passed away very suddenly. He was never sick a day in his life, and I was what I call a really good kid. In interviews, they asked me, so what were you like? And I said, I was a good kid. I was a good student. I was like a jock. I played a lot of ball. I loved girls, and I had a girlfriend, and was just like a good kid. What I call a normal, healthy, good American kid, growing up in the suburbs, believing in God, believing in the American dream, believing in family. Mm-hmm. And then one day, boom, we're at Rosh Hashanah dinner, which is in the Jewish world, the New Year, Happy New Year dinner. We had about 30, 40 people at the house. Mom and Grandma put together a whole big soiree. In the middle of the dinner, my dad said he doesn't feel well. But nothing from nothing, little indigestion, something that I'm quite familiar with mm-hmm. in my last 20 years. And to make a long story short, he went upstairs, and later that night, he was taken to the hospital, and I never saw him again. So it was a shock to my system. I remember I was told that my father passed away the next morning, and I just was red hot angry. I don't know why, but I was angry. The emotion I had was rage. It wasn't grief. It wasn't sadness. It was white hot rage. And I look back now and I say, it was a very selfish experience. I wasn't worried about my mother. I wasn't worried about my younger brother.
From my experience, I know now, after going through grieving myself, that anger is part of it. It's part of the stages. It's the beginning stages. And it is selfish, but we don't see it when it does happen. So I think that's completely normal. But that's what happens after anger. What did you feel after?
I felt the need to smoke pot and take pills and drink alcohol and snort powders.
Oh, you had to numb the pain.
And speed, drive fast, and use women, and get money, and use money. And basically, I just almost felt, I had years later, I spent 7 years in therapy in my 30s after I got clean and sober. That's another story. And
we'll cover that one too.
Whenever you're ready. And the psychiatrist, who was a very, very noted fellow, his name was Dr. Arthur Knauert, very famous. And he said to me, I have a river of rage running through me. And I was convinced that I had now gotten sober. I was in AA, I was in NA, I was in CA. I'm doing the 12 steps. I'm hosting meetings. I go to 2 meetings a day. I'm sponsoring people. And I laughed. I said, you know, Doc, not me. I might be the only member of AA that's not angry. And he looked at me and shook his head like he does. And we moved on. And I found out years later, of course, everything he said was true. That I had a river of rage running through me. And a river of rage is akin to like imagine a raging fire. But he taught me that a fire can be, it's the most powerful thing that in our world that God created, known to man. A fire can destroy, ravage a city, burn down, kill, destroy, ruin a forest, living things, whatever it is, whatever it comes in contact with. But if a fire is managed, if it's sort of corralled, it can light, heat, and feed a city. So the fact that you have this anger, this rage, this sort of disappointment, it's how you manage it and utilize it. And so one of the things that I've learned that I've been able to do is use my anger, use my rage to fuel ambition, to fuel good, to fuel relationships. Just like many guys use it in sport, in business and so forth.
So this happened when? Before you were sober?
So I was 16.
You were 16?
My dad died. I went on a 17-year run with drugs and alcohol and women and money and cars and things. I discovered the stock market.
You became very successful in the stock market.
I learned how to get money,
yeah,
which is very important for an addict, and we're typically pretty good at it. And
so you can sustain that habit.
Whatever I wanted, I just got. Whatever I felt like, I just did. I was a giant id.
Oh, wow.
Freud would have loved me. Out of control. I was out of control, admittedly, and I'm still, the story's still being written about me, and it doesn't ever go away. No matter how much I've done or whatever I've accomplished, it doesn't go away because that's the file. The file is always there. So,
but it also made and shaped who you are today.
Correct. So when I was 33 years old, I ended up getting sober. Now, during this 17-year run, while I was drinking and drugging and using women and doing things, I was going to work every day. And I was accomplishing, unbeknownst to me, great things. I made and lost over $30 million. I mean, I had $30 million on my 30th birthday. And when I started on Wall Street, I had a total of $1,500. I like to tell that story.
You went from 30 million?
I went from 1,500 to 30 million. By the time I was 33, I owed $1 million, and I was broke.
Got it.
Found myself in the Silver Hill Foundation, which is a wonderful institute up in New Canaan, Connecticut, what you would call a rehab, but it's a full hospital, and they treat all kinds of disorders.
Did you turn yourself?
I'm sorry?
Did you go in yourself?
I
or
did.
Did you have help? Somebody said you have to go.
Everybody said I should go. The mafia, that's another story.
I'll edit that.
I actually had a friend, a 6'6", 260-pound friend who drove me up there in his Porsche 911. And I tried to get out of it a few times, and he's like, "You're going in. We love you, and you're going in." And so I went in, and I went into this program, and I took to it instantly, like I do many things, with passion and enthusiasm. And, I have such a narcissistic tendency that when I was in my first AA meeting in the middle of this rehab in Connecticut, detoxing off 11 different types of substances, including alcohol and cocaine and weed and all these different things, I thought there was a room of about 90 people at this meeting. They come in from all the surrounding towns to support this hospital, and the hospital hosts these meetings. And I thought it was all about me. It was all being staged for me. That's how self-important I thought I was. And
wow.
Yeah, and the nice story is that after I got clean and sober, I went back to that hospital for the next 8 or 10 years, every year.
To help out.
And I spoke at these meetings, and I visited with addicts and alcoholics, and I did what you call service.
Yeah.
I gave back. And additionally, I manned a suicide hotline on and off for over 13 years, where people would call in and they would get memoir, and I would explain to somebody that was sort of on the ledge to hold on, because I'm going to come join them on the ledge, and we'll do it together. But don't do it without me. Don't be selfish. Stuff like that. And, I found that it's an interesting thing, and your listeners should pay attention. The more I gave of myself, the more I got. Now, it sounds like a little scammy, and people are going, yeah, sure. I swear to you, that's what happens.
Yeah, and you're giving support, but you're giving it from a true place.
The more I gave, unconditionally, even anonymously, the more I got back.
But let me ask you this: you're skipping a step. What happens before that? Because you had to hit rock bottom.
So I hit bottom in this facility.
Yeah.
My Wall Street brokerage firm, I was a big producer, but they knew I had a problem. I was out of control, and so they supported me to go in and get help. And the insurance company paid. It was like $1,000 a day.
Yeah, those are expensive.
1990. And while I was in rehab, they fired me and stole my business. And wrote very bad things about me in a file, mostly untrue. What the story does, I ended up suing them years later and won real money, and they paid me. But that never shows up anywhere. A lot of the positive things in my life have been suppressed on the internet, on Google. Some believe.
Well, it's easier to reproduce and say bad things, and it makes you more colorful than sometimes being a good person or helping others.
I am the villain. I am the villain.
But I interviewed somebody a long time ago, and he said to me, and he had to go to prison, and he did a lot of things, and then he was doing service, and he said, not because I've been identified as a criminal means I'm necessarily a bad person, and I always thought that about you. I never seen you as a bad person. And I think that's why we stayed in contact. I think you mean well, and you want to help. So that's why I definitely wanted you to be here.
Thank you.
My question is, and I have to go back, when you hit rock bottom, what was it inside that narcissist that turned around or helped you turn around? What did you attach to? What did you go to?
Okay, so I was in this rehab, withdrawing from all these drugs, which was very difficult. I remember when I was 16, my father passed away. 16 is not quite a man. Mm-hmm. I sort of was in a man's body, but I was emotionally a kid.
And now what? You're 33 when you go to the rehab?
You're 33. Mm-hmm. And I've never been sober a day, well, clean or sober, in 17 years. Incredible. Not one day, I swear to you. And
that's incredible.
You don't know. I was in the hospital with viral pneumonia and bronchial respiratory complications, and I was smoking marijuana. I was taking the oxygen mask off and smoking weed and putting it back on. And my wonderful friends brought it to me. But
okay,
a true story. But I'll never forget when I got fired, terminated from my brokerage job. They had to notify me while I was in the rehab. And they were afraid I was going to commit suicide, all these different things.
Does that become rock bottom for you?
Rock bottom became the next 2 or 3 days. I had no job. I owed probably, I just knew, I stopped counting at $1 million, probably more. And I'm suffering in this place, locked in this rehab. I haven't paid rent in my New York City apartment in 7 or 8 months. I'm being evicted. And I remember going out there. It was a beautiful track. It's a beautiful campus and everything. And I'm walking around the track 3, 4, 5 hours. I don't lose track. And just thinking and thinking and thinking, full of anxiety. I don't know if it was a combination from the withdrawal and my circumstances.
Your body.
And I was angry again. Angry at myself. How could I get myself into this mess? How could this happen to me? And I learned, much later on in life, there were two people, only two people in the world that you have to be afraid of. There were two people in the world that you all have to be afraid of, and that's it, only two. Mm-hmm. And that's poor me and the great I am.
Your ego.
And those two people will cause you more pain, hurt, damage, and all that than anybody else in the history of your life. Poor me and the great I am. So now I'm walking around this track in New Canaan, Connecticut, and I'm not really poor me. Okay. The great I am came out and said, how could this happen to me? Mm-hmm. Is the world gone crazy? This is me. And I just was nuts. And I said, oh no, this is not going to happen to me. And I did that. I withdrew like a champ. I even had what they said was a seizure, like a grand mal seizure while I was in there. Mm-hmm. It just kept going. It was just like a hiccup, a distraction, whatever.
How long were you there?
28 days. They begged me to stay for 90. They said, you can't go back out. You will not stay clean.
So you didn't do 90 days?
I did 28 days. It was a 28-day program. That's what I signed up for, and I completed the program.
Okay.
But they didn't think I was ready to go back out there. But my ego was so driven. In these little meetings they have, these AA meetings that they have, they count days. And I raised my hand. My name is Ross. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic, and I got 20 days. And I got 20. And if you slip, you have to go back down to 1, if you can get 1. And I valued my days. My idea was to get thousands of days. There were guys coming to like I did much later, 10 years sobriety, 15 years sobriety. I wanted what they had. And one of the things that...
I remember you, when I met you, and I know it was a lot after that, but you were very much counting every day that you were sober. That day meant so much to you.
Correct.
Or today is this anniversary. When we met, I still remember how much
it's very
it meant
important.
To you. And you said, I want it. Doesn't mean that I don't want it, but I take it day by day. Right. I want to drink, and I
right. There were days you just want to cling to the fact that you have a day.
Yeah.
One day at a time, 1 hour at a time, and all that good stuff. But my ego and my desire to not be...
weak?
Pathetic. I'm not weak. Even at my lowest, I've never looked at myself as weak. But I looked at my life circumstances and I said, this is pathetic. This is pathetic. It's not acceptable. And I was pissed. And again, angry. That rage came up. But the rage helps me. It helped me get out of this place legit. And I did the 28 days, went back to Manhattan, went to housing court, fought, ended up getting another place. Moving forward, I went back into the brokerage business, even though everyone said he was done. I could never go back into the business. I was only allowed to sell in 6 states or 7 states. And the guys that took a shot on me, within 4 months, I became the best producer in the firm, making, $70,000, $100,000 a month.
When did you get married? How old were you when you got married?
So here's the interesting thing. I got clean and I got sober. Clean and sober are 2 different things.
And what is the difference?
So clean means I didn't drink today. I haven't done a drug today. Okay, I haven't taken a mind-altering substance. Okay, so I'm clean. Sober is sort of a set of principles, of values, a way of living, an ethos. Okay, sober is telling the truth.
Allowing yourself to feel?
Being polite. The biggest part of sobriety is feeling your feelings. So the guys that don't drink and they don't drug, but they're with 3 or 4 women a week. When they get in the car, they go 80, 90 miles an hour in a 30. Because when you're engaging in that sort of behavior, it's non-sober behavior.
Oh, okay.
You're not feeling your feelings.
Got it.
Lying. being dishonest, things of that nature. Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a great book called The Four Agreements.
A beautiful book.
And I urge people to take a look at that book.
I love that book.
I have no interest in this, financial interest, but I will tell you that...
I read it in English and in Spanish.
That's beautiful, and I read that every year.
It's a beautiful book.
Because it's important to honor your word and to do the things to observe those four agreements. And that's what I mean by being sober. It's a pattern of behavior. And
being honest with yourself.
Well, you're not always aware when you're being dishonest, right? I mean, you might be in a marriage and you love your husband and he's just abusive and you're making excuses for him.
Yeah.
You're not being dishonest.
I've seen that happen.
You just don't know it.
Yeah.
You don't always know it, but doing your best legitimately. So, for instance, people say, "Well, how do I know if I'm being sober?" I said, "Well, we all know. We know when we do something wrong. Do you understand? We're people. God gave us an intellect that separates us from the animal world. We know when we do something wrong. That's why they call it a conscience. God knows what other things he created. But the truth of the matter is, we know when we do something wrong, and we know when we're good."
So wait, so you get clean and sober.
Correct.
I want to get to your story.
Go.
It's your story.
Let's do it.
You get clean and sober, and do you get married?
Well, here's the thing. So now I'm sober, and I'm in business. I'm back in business.
Yes.
And Ross Mandell is now a machine.
Yes.
Because Ross Mandell was talented, but was, half in the bag all the time. So, I was working, maybe 3 days a week instead of 5, making $100,000 a month, making $150,000 a month, making $200,000 a month. All of a sudden, I'm clean and sober. And where am I going? I'm just staying in the office. I'm working. All of a sudden, I achieved all kinds of different levels. I've 1 year I made over $65 million.
I remember you became a speaker too.
I've been a speaker. In the industry, all over Wall Street. I've spoken for corporations. I've spoken at fraternities, and I spoke in Parliament. I spoke in British Parliament twice. One time I opened up Parliament on May Day. I was right after the Queen of England, and that was May Day 2005.
What was the top? What was your top?
That was my top. I was addressing the House of Commons and the House of Lords. I had the privilege, I was allowed to invite 250 guests. It's on the River Thames in England. It was a beautiful sunny day. All my business associates, customers, and friends, everybody was there. It was a beautiful, the House of Lords were there, the House of Commons was there, and the Queen, I was in a little, sort of the green room, what you would call it in Parliament, getting ready, and the Queen of England came, and the 6 lords in waiting. I said, "What are you waiting for?" "We're waiting for the Queen. She opens up Parliament for the spring session. It's called May Day, and then they have the Ascot races, with the hats and the fancy outfits." Right, so I had my own tent there and all that. And so I go to, they asked me to open up Parliament with the Queen of England at May 5th, 2005. So I knew I was somebody.
Yeah.
I had hit.
So how long had it passed since you came out of rehab?
Well, I got out of rehab in 1990. I went in 90. I got out sort of 91. I got out November 22nd or 23rd, something like that, of 1990.
And you were determined to go to that top.
I'll tell you something that really helped me. So in 2005, that was the top. At 15 years, and I was clean. I was sober. I was physically good. And at that time, I was already married. But I want to tell you how I met my wife. So I got out of rehab, and I'm working on Wall Street, and a part of that crowd and that sort of game, that industry. And I used to drive around. I bought a car as soon as I got money back, because I had nothing. I lost everything. I never declared bankruptcy in my life. I owed about $1 million plus. I paid off every single red cent. I made good with every single creditor and debtor. I owed nothing. And that took me 2 years, maybe more. And to make a long story short, I used to drive around the east end of Long Island, the Wolf of Wall Street in that movie. You know, he had his house. So I was invited to that party. I was on a date with a girlfriend, and we actually introduced Jordan Belfort to Nadine Grasso. Her name was Naomi, the Duchess.
Wow.
Myself and
I didn't know this part.
a girlfriend named Ginger. Hey, babe. Haven't seen her in a few years.
Wolf of Wall Street.
And she said, "I want to introduce you to this guy, Jordan Belfort from Stratton Oak Mine." I was on the come up after I was sober, and she goes, "I'm bringing my girlfriend. She's a lingerie model," and that was Nadine Grasso, who's Naomi in the movie. And we went to a little restaurant on 2nd Avenue in like 78th Street called Ciao Bella, very famous place. And we had a little outdoor table, and this Nadine was stunning, gorgeous, beautiful girl. And that was the first time they met. And then he said, "I'm having a big party this weekend at my Hamptons house. Why don't you guys come?" So I went. And I went. The movie was a little bit, untrue, but he had met her that night, fell madly in love with her, whatever. But I'll never forget that day, I was driving around the Hamptons, his house on Dune Road, and I said, this should be mine. This is mine. I was worth $30 million when this kid was a cold caller. He was nothing. He worked at our firm, Jordan. And I was a top guy. I was number 2 and number 3 in this firm out of 150 guys. He was a trainee, a kid. And I was very successful, very talented, and yet I had made so many bad decisions because of my drug and alcohol problem that I ended up losing everything by the time I was 33, and I was broken in debt. People say, people that like to drink a lot and take drugs and all this and that, and God bless you, I'm all for it. My heart's with you. But it's not the drugs or alcohol that cause you problems. It's the decision-making you make. One of the first things that happen when you get clean, you get clarity. You don't realize when you're using, you messed up. You fucked up. Yeah. You don't realize you're not clear. And sobriety has a lot to do with clarity.
How did you get to clarity? That's why we're here. I want to know.
Well, I'll tell you. So, and I mentioned
all the tests that you've done.
I mentioned it earlier. I was a God-fearing kid, what I call a good kid, right? When you're a kid, they teach you right or wrong. Don't do that. God's watching, or you go to hell, or you go to heaven, and you go to church, you go to temple, or you go to the mosque, wherever you go. And a lot of our sort of values and principles and morals come from the concept of organized religion, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're young.
Yeah.
Don't do that. God's watching, or Santa's not going to put you on a bad list. All that crap. So, and when you have a kid, you teach them and you do the best you can, whatever. And the day my father passed away, September 27, 1973, God died to me. There was no God. I was a good kid. My mother was a good mother. My brother was an exceptional young man. My father was my life. To me, he was perfect. What kind of God would take him away from this family? It can't be. So this was an earth-shattering moment, because not only was I told you, full of rage, but part of me was raging because this whole story that I've been living for 16 years was a lie. There is no God. Good and evil. My father never did a bad thing in his life.
I know, but I'm the same with you. You felt the same way when things happened to you later in life. But I still want the formula that takes Russell out of the hole every time, out of the anger.
Well, I'm going to share this with you, and I'm going to tell you sincerely that when I got sober, part of AA and getting clean is belief in a power greater than you. Belief that there's something in this universe greater than you.
Not necessarily God or religion.
That's required, just belief.
Okay.
Because if they were trying to sell God, there would be no AA. Because alcoholics and drug addicts are the most argumentative, difficult people on earth, just so you know. And we're intelligent and we're gifted in many ways, overly sensitive, but argumentative and will drive you crazy. So I couldn't believe in God. I couldn't get my arms around it. I couldn't even get my arms around.
But you believe there is a bigger...
I couldn't get my arms around it at first.
Okay.
But I just didn't drink. I didn't take drugs. I kept coming to meetings. I was practicing the 12 steps. I was reading the literature. And they just said, you just keep coming and God will find you. You don't have to necessarily find God. God's going to find you. And I'm like, this is like a lot of hokey shit, but I started to get clarity right away. And I was starting to put a game plan together how I was going to rebuild my life right away. Right away. Life is easy. Life is easy if you're clean and you're clear. It's not that difficult, really. And
do you think it's because you're that pragmatic that makes it easier for you to go back out of the hole and jump on your feet again?
Maybe, but I'll never forget, I was at the beach, the shore. I was standing there. I was very lonely. So I learned when I got clean that my best friends were Johnny Walker and Jack Daniels and vodka martinis. And all of a sudden, I'm not drinking, I'm not taking drugs, and I was lonely. I craved Alexandra Flugel. You understand, like that sort of thing. I wanted to love somebody. I wanted somebody to love me. I wanted a companion, and I was very lonely. I'll never forget. And I was taking a walk along a boardwalk on Long Island by Atlantic Beach. My mom had a small house there. After my father died, she sold the house, and we moved to a small little house about 5 blocks from the beach. And I was struggling, trying to figure out a power greater than me, because I was sort of stuck. Mm-hmm. And I'm staring at the ocean, and the vastness of this giant, pool of water. It's like endless, and the waves just keep coming in. They just keep coming in. They just keep coming in, and that's not something I could do.
Is that when you think God found you?
That's when I realized there's something in the universe
bigger,
much greater than me.
Yeah. Okay.
Something. And I had a moment. I had that white light moment.
Okay.
Where a sense of relief came over me.
You have faith.
Well, it's that I'm not responsible for everything in my life. There is something much greater than me out there. And if I could sort of embrace it, maybe it can help me. Maybe I could tap into it. Like, what? I needed money. I was dead broke. And I saw Wall Street. And I said, aha, look at all this. If I could just somehow get in there and figure it out, embrace it, and make friends or be a part of, maybe I can get some money so I could have nice things and go to nice clubs and have a big house and,
But let's stop there. We only have a few more minutes, and
Okay.
a lot happens after that. You hit rock bottom again. You've reached the top, like you were talking to
Yes.
me when you are in England, and then you hit rock bottom again.
So now I'm very lonely. And just because I'm lonely and Ross Mandell's lonely and I'm ready to get married and start a family doesn't mean Mrs. Wright's going to show up. So I'm dating in Manhattan. I've got some serious girlfriends, but just not. And then Stephanie walks in my life. And she was everything I always wanted and dreamed of, just a purely good person, gives off a light white light around her, a beautiful
Yes, she
person,
does.
a special,
She's a beautiful person.
special inside, outside, the whole thing. And I said, I want to marry her.
And then you get 2 beautiful daughters.
She gives me 2 beautiful daughters, and I'm doing some great things. I'm the first American to bring a regulated American business public on the London Stock Exchange, which is 150 years older than our stock exchange.
Yeah.
The London Stock Exchange was really the first big stock exchange, and nobody had ever done that from America.
How long did it take you? When you go through that period?
Well, this is now 2002, so I got clean in the end of 90, so 91 to 2002, I have a huge business. I have a tremendous reach, much more than anybody ever really knew.
You're married and you have
I'm
2
married.
girls.
I have, I had one girl, Skylar, and Sky Capital was named after her. Sydney came in 2003. I already had my first offering was already public. Sky Capital was already public in London in trading, very successful. It was the #1 performing stock in all of Europe for almost 4 years. And then a lot of guys in business said, you know what, maybe he got lucky, right? Sometimes you get lucky in business and life, whatever.
Do you believe in luck?
I believe that you make your own luck, but I do believe that we have the ability to connect to this higher power, which I choose to call God today.
Okay.
So somewhere he became God because it's easier. It's a 3-letter word, God, 1 syllable, instead of being a higher power and go into this whole thing. It's easier for me.
Okay.
I'm pragmatic. It's God.
Yes.
He's not some old white guy, with long gray hair, sitting on a throne. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the creator is, but
Because you are Jewish by...
I am Jewish by faith. I was brought up in the Jewish religion, and I do believe in Judaism, and I believe in the Old Testament. I do believe in it. I've studied it, but I've also studied the New Testament, and I do believe in Jesus. And I've read the Quran. Yeah. And I do believe in all organized religion, because all good religion preaches goodness, preaches faith, preaches family, preaches values that I believe make sense to me and should make sense to the world.
So take me back to, fast forward to where you are in Sky Capital.
So now I take Sky Capital public. I've got 2 companies public. I'm celebrated in London.
Yeah.
I'm on the stock exchange there. I speak in Parliament. And I'm unaware that there were a few guys in my firm. At one point, I had 4,100 people on all my payrolls. Okay? I owned a publishing company in England. I owned 4 Homeland Security companies, which we turned into one.
And you're unaware that there
are some guys at my firm doing some bad things.
Okay.
But remember, hundreds of employees, thousands of people on the payroll, and there's a bunch of guys running a little scam.
Okay.
Out of New York. I was barely there. I was traveling mostly all around, and I had stepped away really from the brokerage. And I was never the one that was supposed to be policing the brokerage. I was not supervising them. We had other guys that were supposed to be doing that.
That's okay. We don't need to go over that.
It turns out the FBI comes in 2006.
Yeah.
40 guys in SWAT jackets. They're searching the place. They said they're looking for drugs and guns. So that someone fed them some bullshit information. And there are no drugs and there are no guns, none that I knew of. And they said, all right, no one's going to get arrested, no one's in trouble, which is, a lie. They had called all the media. We were 2 public companies trading, and they admit later on that they were doing their best to try and end our business, which is wrong, which is a violation of law, the Constitution, everything, but they do it anyway. This is everybody sees what's happening now to former President Trump.
And then what happened? And
so I end up getting indicted. I fight like crazy. I spend millions and millions of dollars. Yes. And eventually you can't beat... I have a good friend who's here today, and his dad used to say, you can't fight City Hall.
Got it.
I mean, the United States government, we take over countries. What chance does a guy like me have against them? Think about it. What chance does any of us have against this government if it's motivated to get you? The word is zero.
Did you feel that you got stripped of everything?
No, I felt like I put up a huge fight.
You did.
And then I never thought I was going to go to prison until the day I was actually in prison. And as soon as I got to prison, I thought I was going to get out of prison. It was after about 6 months when the Solicitor General of the United States argued to the Supreme Court when he admitted the district court got it wrong and the appellate court got it wrong. They admit it. But he asked the Supreme Court to stay out of the fray and allow the circuits to police themselves. That's the actual language at the Supreme Court by the Solicitor General of the United States in my case, acknowledging, got it wrong, district court, got it wrong at appellate court, but please stay out of it. We'll take care of it. And the Supreme Court said, okay. They turned down, they said they're not going to hear the case. The Solicitor General said, let the circuits police themselves. And then they did nothing, left me in jail.
Okay, so I want to take...
So now I'm in prison, federal prison.
Yes.
Okay.
Federal prison. I want to know what...
Yes. You could argue that I'm at another bottom, but it's not legit. It's not a legitimate argument. It's not. It wouldn't be honest of me to say that. I felt like my circumstances sucked. I'm in prison. They took away about $60+ million from me, real money.
And you're away from your family.
I'm locked up in federal prison. I got a 12-year sentence, 144 months. I ended up serving 112 months. But unlike 1990, when I was walking along that track and I had no God, I was withdrawing from drugs, I had no one that I loved, no one that loved me.
Oh, you had so much more. You had it all.
I've got a beautiful wife and 2 kids. All right, they're suffering, they're struggling, they're without me. God knows what's happening to them. The government stripped us, broke us apart, right? And
what are you thinking at this point?
And hold on, and I'm not withdrawing from drugs and alcohol, and I have a body of knowledge that I've accumulated with great clarity because I was sober and I was clean for 25+ years. And I'm thinking, this really sucks. Here's the problem. I realized I went to prison, I was 57 years old. And they strip everything they can from you, everything. The last thing to go is your freedom. You know, in the law, you have civil law, the SEC. People don't understand, like what Trump is going through with this attorney general in New York. And
no, what? Stay on your story.
Right, but I'm just saying,
I want to stay with you.
They're trying to take all his money away. Then the criminal courts, they take your freedom away. That's the last thing that America was built, the land of the free. Yeah. You understand? We're constitutional. You know, we're supposed to have a system that ensures our citizens' freedom. But, you know, you can't fight City Hall. And so they took my freedom away. And for those of you that are free and feel bad for yourselves because, you know, maybe you have no money, maybe you have a broken heart, maybe you have nowhere to live, you're free. Find yourself. Find yourself. Because, you know, there's an expression in the program, if you get on the elevator in the penthouse, you don't have to go all the way to the basement. You can get off in the lobby. So if you're free, guess what? When they take away your freedom, you have no idea what it's like to lose freedom until you don't have it. It's like everything else we take for granted.
Everything in life, yeah.
And
we take it for granted. And
I took the opportunity while I was away to do things that I had always planned to do, but I never really could. I never had the time. I was so busy going and doing.
Give me a couple of examples.
I love to read, but I have trouble reading.
I love to read.
I love to just read and shut out the world. Well, guess what? The government, courtesy of the government, I got to read Chaucer, and I got to read Hemingway, and I got to read Shakespeare, and I got to read the Kabbalah. You know, I read the first 8 books of the Zohar in Aramaic, Hebrew, and English. So I got to do so many wonderful things. I went through that library. I read everything.
So let me, I have to wrap it up.
Yes.
I could have you here for a second show. We have so much to say. But you're here today. So how long did you serve? And what is Russ up to today?
I'm going to tell you exactly.
Tell me. Give me your new elevator pitch.
I served 112 months in federal prison in the system. I was released January the 10th. I'm living in Boca Raton, Florida. And
what's next for you?
Okay, I've launched, if you go to rossmandell.com, 2 S's, 2 L's, you'll see my new website. We're launching officially second week in April. I'll be appearing on some very serious podcasts, television shows.
And you're ready to take over what? What did you want to accomplish?
I'm going to explain that to you. I've done, I'm going to be doing a lot of print media with some very serious financial journals, and all the newspapers that covered me in the past, they're dying to get in and find out now what's next. But I will say this, Alexandra. Against my producer's best efforts, I'm here today because I adore you, and I always have, as you know.
Thank you.
I can honestly say that my first real media training came from this little Venezuelan beauty who walked by a TV studio and saw me in a room through a glass window talking into a camera, struggling. And she said, "Excuse me, can I help you?" And I said, "You got to do whatever you want to me." And she said, "Can I give you some tips?" I'm a director, a producer, and this is 15 years ago. And a very kind person you are. Also,
Thank
that
you.
light is around you, the goodness. I know all you fellas know that. And to make a long story short, I am in the process of building a platform that will allow me to share some of the things that I've shared with you today, some of the things that I've learned over the last 50 years of me running and gunning and going and doing. I'm going to be talking about addiction and alcoholism. I know
You're
that
putting Russ and use your what we call the service that you've done, and you're taking it to it.
doing service, but I had a huge platform when I was on Wall Street doing good things.
Yes.
I've had a huge platform as the bad boy of Wall Street, according
Yes.
to the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. Okay. According to the United States government, I'm an evil genius who's taken over 100 companies public. And so I'm going to talk about finance. I'm going to teach young men about the markets, young women about the markets, about how to succeed in the markets. I'm going to deliver a podcast that's going to cover the events of the day. We're going to be talking about addiction and alcoholism. Everybody wants to know about prison. I can't tell you everybody wants to know about the prison experience, what goes on in the showers. Are there really trains and rape and extortion and gangs and beating? I'm going to talk about all that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There are very few men in this world, or women, that can deliver this, orate this as clearly as I can, as descriptively, as honestly as I can. And, when I was in the joint, as they say, they used to call me OG. And I'll just say like this. So they said to me, "Listen, you stole $140 million without a gun. Can you please teach us how to do that?" That's what guys got when they studied my case. They said,
I have one last question for you.
Let's do it.
If we're going to make a movie about your life, what would you call it?
Well, there's a discussion on that already.
I'm sure.
And some people are using a working title called The Lord of London. They want to talk about my rise in London and how I ran sort of roughshod over the city of London and Scotland and Ireland, etc. And flashing back to my case in New York.
Is that what you would call it?
I don't know what I would call it, but this is just a title that some people have come up with.
Okay.
A bunch of people think, The Wolf of Wall Street, I'm the next one. That's my story. I'm the next guy, the next story that's become like a cult hit. It was nominated for Academy Awards. All the guys that produced that, and so to speak, I'm in touch with. So I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a better judge of other people's stuff
Than anything that relates to you.
Looking at myself, it's very difficult.
It is.
The fellow.
Even as a producer, I must say
Right.
it is.
The guy that's producing my podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Woolley, Mr. Scott Woolley, Delray Beach, Florida.
I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to have to wrap it up. I want to invite everybody to follow Russ in his next journey.
Thank you.
And step up. And if you like our podcast today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much, Russ, for being here. And please come and see us again in the next Open with Alex.
Thank you, Alex. What a woman. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you, baby.
Thank you.
I'm gonna shake it.
It's so